hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Girl Ambition with your girl, Nia Baxter. This is your go-to space for community, empowerment, and practical tips to help you level up in your career and in all aspects of your life. Black Girl Ambition is not just a podcast. It is a movement. Think executive level coffee chat meets sister circle meets motivational masterclass. You can find Black Girl Ambition on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite streaming platform. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend as well if you have not already. Okay, so ambitious Black girls. Today we are speaking with Amira Barger. Amira Barger is the award-winning Executive Vice President of Health Communications and Head of DEI Advisory at Edelman, which is the largest communications and public relations firm in the world. She is also professor at California State University, East Bay, where she teaches marketing, communications, and change management. And she is the author of a new book called The Price of Nice: Why Comfort Keeps Us Stuck, and 4 Actions for Real Change. Her book is being released in October, so go get your pre-order on. You can very frequently find Amira gracing stages, speaking on panels, delivering keynotes, and as she says, saying the quiet parts out loud, which is what I like to do as well. So today we'll be exploring a couple different topics together. Those will be the true price of niceness and challenging that status quo, being unapologetically ambitious as Black women, and building new realities to realize our fullest, truest potential. So thank you so much for being here today, Amira.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
So I like to ground these conversations in an understanding of early life for you, upbringing, influences. You had a very unique upbringing. I was doing some research on you and read that you grew up on an island. I would love for you to share a little more about what that early environment was like for you and how it shaped who you are today.
Yes, absolutely. I did. I grew up on the tiny island of Guam, which is a U.S. territory, way out in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific, right above the equator, top of Australia to the left of Hawaii. It is 30 miles long, 8 miles wide, tiny. You can go around the island on a Vespa or your bike in one day, probably a couple times over.
Wow.
Small island, but filled with big dreamers like myself. And I grew up there because I am the child of ministers. My parents were actually missionaries there once upon a time throughout all of the 90s. And so the formative years of my childhood were spent in this tiny place. And I think many people could relate to it if you've grown up in a small town, right? It's a very similar vibe where everyone knows everyone. You might be related to quite a few people as well. Everyone knows everyone's business too. That's the advent of a small place also, right? The good and the bad and everything in between. And I was the second eldest of 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls. Wow. No twins, no adoptions, not a blended family, because people always ask. Nope, my mom had all 8 of us. And it was a dreamy upbringing. I tell people all the time, I wish as a child I had known what I had. Right? When you think back, growing up on a beautiful tropical island where it's summer and sunshine and sand and fun all year round, it was a beautiful place to grow up and to be shaped and formed. And in particular, what I think back to in terms of like roots and early influences, community. Community wasn't just a concept where I grew up, it was life. Everybody knew everybody. And that sort of village mentality really taught me that we rise together or not at all. And I think that upbringing, the way that I was shaped in a small place with people who I'd known for almost the entirety of my life really helped to instill of community, for community, by community as a way that I like to wake up and live my life every single day.
That's incredible. Such a unique upbringing. And shout out to your mother for having 8 children.
Right? I only have 1, and that was enough.
I have 2, and I'm like, I've tapped out. Absolutely not.
You get it. Yeah.
I get it. Would you say that value of deep community when you were growing up influenced your passion for equity, justice, and change?
Oh, absolutely. Because you see the way that your choices The way that you move through the world impacts the people around you in a
Right.
very immediate way when your community is so small and when you know all of those people, from to even just like the way that you would vote or shop or care for the land around you where I grew up. You really could see the immediate impact on your neighbors. And that has absolutely been a powerful shaper of what I think about equity, justice, leadership. And I also think back to that time because when you grow up on an island that the world often overlooks unless they need a military base, which is why the US has Guam as a territory. It's a key in the Pacific Fleet. You learn very quickly about power dynamics in particular, and watching my family, especially the women, hold it down without titles, without recognition, showed me what real leadership looks like. In Guam, in their culture in particular, it's a matriarchy. So the women run things, and there's a lot of deference to women in the culture and community. And that was really, I think, interesting, but also stark contrast to how we move through the world here on the mainland US, which was, for me, we came back when I was right in the middle of high school in my sophomore year. And so it was a huge culture shock, not only coming back from a tiny place to California, a very big place, but the culture shock of how people move through the world, how hierarchy, power dynamics, and even patriarchy are so different from matriarchy. And so it showed me what real leadership can look like, what dynamics between relationships, service, stewardship, and even like sheer stubborn love, and how that shapes the world and people around you.
Incredible. I want to transition to your book, The Price of Nice, and I want to dive into your book's core messages.
Yes.
What inspired you to write The Price of Nice?
I wrote this book, The Price of Nice, because I was tired of being told to be palatable. I always, while I was busy out here in the world trying to be powerful. And that's really what inspired it.
Wait, listen. Say that again.
Yes.
I was tired of being told to be palatable when I'm trying to be powerful.
Yes.
What?
Yes. And I feel like so many of us know and understand that dichotomy and that message that is so, it's just a, what's the word? But, you know, people tell us the entirety of my life, I was told to somehow both shrink but also shine, and right, and all these dichotomies. And I think for women especially, the book is for everyone, but in particular within the US, I think that women are socialized to be palatable and to be nice and to be quiet and stay in your lane, right?
Yes,
sit pretty, play
much.
nice are things we hear a lot. I think in particular in the US, women will understand and resonate with this on like a cellular level in ways that I know I don't even have to use that many words to describe to women what this is. And I think that niceness is a tax that we all pay, but in particular women, and even further, especially Black women, right? We keep getting asked to pay to make other people comfortable, this tax. And if we're really real about it, the return on that investment is complete trash. It's the status quo being maintained and people in power continuing exactly where they are. And I start the book out, the preface, with a story from my childhood and my upbringing on the tiny island of Guam, where back in the day, before we had the gram, or even TikTok, one of the surefire ways to have people know and understand that you had just gone somewhere fabulous is what we call vacation hair. So you'd come back with your braided cornrows and the beads clacking from whatever beautiful tropical island you had gone to. And so my sisters and I, we had these two little friends, blonde-haired, blue or hazel-eyed twins, and they would come back from vacation every year with their vacation hair. And their hair is not meant for those kinds of braids. And so very quickly it become this frizzy haystack of a mess. Right. And they'd be in my mom's room on the floor begging her, can you please fix our hair? Can you make it like theirs, pointing at us because they wanted the braids? And so my mom, you know, kind as she was, she would sit there parting their hair and trying to fix it. And there was just one day, for whatever reason, little 9-year-old Amira, and they were squirming, as they often would every time, like, ouch, it hurts. You know, is it supposed to hurt this much? Is my hair falling out? Does it hurt this much for you? Does your hair fall out? And little 9-year-old Amira that day, I was standing in the doorway and I just kind of snapped. And I said, well, it's because those braids aren't for your hair. It's not for you. And my mom snapped at me. She was like, Amira, that's not nice. And for
Mm.
me, that was the very first moment I can think of in my lifetime where I started to realize the price of nice. Sort of this idea that even if something is true, right?
Right.
If it makes someone else uncomfortable, you are the problem, right? And it was true. Those little
Mm.
blonde haired girls, their hair wasn't made for those kinds of braids. So, of course, their head hurt and it felt like their hair was falling out, right? So,
Right.
even in the midst of unwitting cultural appropriation, little Amir was like, that's not for you. And very practical, I thought to myself, well, if it's not for you and you want your head to stop hurting, just don't get the braids, right? That's sort of very practical reaction of, in order for the pain to stop, don't do that thing. And what I realized way back when was that in that moment, what the twins wanted was comfort or empathy of, oh, yeah, it hurts.
Mm.
That's so sad, right?
Mm.
And what I write about in the book is this idea of we're often having very different kinds of conversations. And it's where I learned about a concept called the matching principle. And so, really
Mm.
quickly, the matching principle is this idea that we go through the world and through life having three typical types of conversations. So, the
Mm.
first one would be a practical conversation focused on solving problems or making plans. The second kind of conversation is an emotional conversation, all about
Mm.
sharing feelings or seeking empathy. And then the third one is social conversations. And that's all about connection and identity. And I think that day, little Amira, I was having a practical conversation. I was trying to solve the problem. Your head hurts, so stop getting braids. Duh.
Right.
The twins are having an emotional conversation. They wanted empathy. And I couldn't fathom in my little mind how saying something like, that's so sad, it hurts, was
Mm.
a solution in any way, shape, or form. And so
Mm.
I learned that day, even if I couldn't put words to it as a 9-year old, that again, this idea of you have to be nice, say the nice thing, even where there are truths, telling people the truth about a situation will often make them sort of look at you differently and put you in a
Mm.
corner of being problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of where the idea for, well, what is the price of nice? It's truth not being told. It's our situations continuing to harm us and to hurt us and not moving towards real solutions and the changes that we need for our challenges to be stopped in their tracks. People want us to play nice
Absolutely.
forevermore. And we need to stop doing that. So I wrote a whole book about it.
I love this so much because it's that lack of honesty. It's the
Yes.
lack of honesty that keeps us stuck. And when I
Mhm.
think about all the different ways we can be stuck, it's friendships, right? Like
Yes.
being nice and not challenging and saying the real thing in friendships and
Mhm.
relationships, most certainly at work, right? Like the
1,000%.
toxic positivity of the
That
workplace,
part.
like that niceness, not giving people real feedback, not growing and developing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then there's also the broader societal, like if I look at the world now and like the dumpster
Yes.
fire that it is,
It sure
there's
is.
like the lack of, you can't have revolutionary change if everyone is just trying to keep everyone comfortable and their
Yes.
feelings intact. And
There's too
so,
much of that right now. There's a
yeah.
lot of calls for decorum and civility. And
Mm.
I think that this book is timely because we're in a moment and we're going to get to the antithesis of nice, I know, that I write about. Change requires discomfort.
Mm.
Revolution isn't polite. And so all these calls for we need to be civil, we need to be polite, we need to have decorum in this moment when, as you said, the world, we're in a dumpster fire and so much progress, every inch that we fought for is very quickly being unraveled before our
Very
eyes.
quickly.
We don't need niceness and we don't need comfort. We need the exact opposite, and we have to move in a very different way if we want things to look different.
So what's the opposite of niceness if it's not, I'm assuming it's not being mean.
It's not.
So
That's an
what
easy
is
assumption, right?
it's an easy assumption,
It
but
is.
knowing you for the short amount of time that I have, I don't think that your
That's
perspective
right.
is that
That's
it's
right. No, it's
meanness.
not.
But what is it? What's the
Yes.
opposite?
So, what I call for in the book is I want us to examine nice and niceness as a social construct, right? Meaning it's not a natural or inherent truth. It's just one of many collectively agreed upon ideas that shape our behaviors, our relationships, and institutions. It's just a made up rule. And so niceness, according to Merriam-Webster, right, it's polite, agreeable, appropriate, and it sounds really harmless, even very pleasant. And the antithesis of nice that I write about is not mean, and it's also not even kindness, which is also another natural assumption people make. But to me, I write about the antithesis of nice is nerve. And nerve is boldness, fortitude, audacity, right? The courage to stand firm, speak up, and to take action, even when it's uncomfortable, right? Nice seeks approval. Nerve demands discomfort and change, not discomfort for discomfort's sake, discomfort for the sake of change. And so challenging the status quo, even though we know there is a cost, and there is, and holding boundaries, even when people want to call or label you difficult or angry. Nerve disrupts, and disruption is exactly what we need more of in today's world.
Yes, it is. It is. But there is a cost to it. And I think just in my own observation of the way that the world is, there are so many people that they're very comfortable, like they're comfortable enough. So things aren't exactly the way that they should be,
That's
but
right.
they've carved out this little slice of it for themselves that feels okay.
That's right.
And they don't want to give that up. And I've
Yeah.
seen that from all sorts of people in all walks of life, including Black corporate executives who
Agreed.
have gotten to.
They rose, they got theirs, and some of them have pulled up the ladder behind them. So none of us can climb that ladder as well. I see that too, and it's unfortunate. And what it makes me think of is, one of the, I think, common things that came out of 2024 around this last presidential election is that some people voted for themselves, right? And some people voted for others, even people they will never meet. And that's one way that will benefit people. And I voted for policies and I voted for change that might not affect me personally or directly, but it affects other humans. And even if I don't know them, I care about them. I care about them living a fulfilled, thriving life. I care about them having the resources and the supports that they need to move through this world well. And I think if more of us would have that kind of perspective and step outside of self and act a little less selfishly and more selflessly, we'd all be better for it. And there are, again, things that we choose today that will impact people years, decades from now, people I will never know and see, change that I may never know and see, but I still move through this world trying to make choices that will be the betterment for others that I may not ever know.
Perfect place to end that segment of the conversation. I completely agree with you. I think that we have an empathy problem. We have an empathy problem in terms of people seeing themselves and others and broader humanity and being so bought into fierce individualism, and it's ruining everything. Thank you for that. I want to talk about ambition and your personal relationship to ambition and advice you may have for other Black women. I was reading, I think it was an article I was reading of interaction that you had with a former mentor who was very upset with you, frustrated with you, maybe about being too ambitious. And I've had those sorts of interactions too. Maybe not as outward, right? Like maybe not as in my face as telling me that I'm too ambitious, but the action or lack of actions reflect what they think of me and my ambitions. So I would love for us to get into that. I'll start with the simple question first. Like, what is your relationship with ambition? And also, how has it evolved over the course of your career? Like, has it been consistent? Has it kind of ratcheted up? Has it ebbed and flowed with different phases of your life? I'm curious about that.
Oh, it's definitely ratcheted up. And I am a September Virgo. So when I go into something, I go all in and I go 10 toes down and I'm all about that thing. And
Yeah.
so it was 2014. I wrote an MSNBC article that you're referring to about ambition. 2014, my then mentor said to me, your ambition scares people. It scares me and you need to tone it down. And the worst thing you can do to me or to any September Virgo or any woman with ambition is tell them to tone it down, because then I'm going to do the exact
You
opposite.
said do what?
Who do you think you're talking to? Like, we've been meeting together for a year. Have you not learned who I am? Like, excuse me?
Yes.
So my relationship to ambition has definitely changed throughout the years. At first, ambition for me was about survival, right? I have bills to pay. I have people depending on me. I have to achieve. I have to climb. I have to be ambitious, literally just based on survival and meeting my needs and the needs of the people that I love. Then for me, it became about influence, right? Is being able to throw down the ladder for others that look like me, being able to bring people alongside me. And I would say that now the way I view ambition, it's about liberation, right? For me and for those who are coming after me. And that's how I try to think of it, is that everything I'm reaching for and towards is about something I talk a lot about, is building a foundation and then laying the brick that I am meant to lay. Right. And in a foundation, everyone's laying a brick. And I know that I may not get to build the entirety of the house, right? But my job is to lay my set of bricks, and someone will come after me and lay their set of bricks. And that I'm part of something greater than myself, like we were just talking about, is sort of this idea of the collective, and understanding that the choices that I make today and what I do today help people that will come after me, even if I don't know it. Legacy, I think that's what it's about, is leaving something I teach my 12-year-old. We leave people and places better than we found them. And for me, ambition is about that, because to me, that's part of what ties into my beliefs about liberation. So I'm leaving people and places better than I found them with the choices that I make every single day. And so for me, that's what ambition is. Everything that I'm doing isn't just for the sake of survival anymore, or paying my bills or getting mine. It's about, what is the world that I want my daughter to inherit, and her daughter and her daughter, and so on and so forth through the generations. I think with that lens every day with everything that I do and choose.
See, I knew we were here.
Right?
I knew it.
That's right. That's
I
right.
knew it. You know how you can just like see someone? So, y'all, this is the first time Amira and I do not know each other before this conversation. But you know how you like read someone's stuff on LinkedIn
And
and
energy.
post on Instagram, and you like feel the energy?
Yeah.
Like I felt like we were friends and we hadn't
Love
met
it.
yet.
And now we are. And now you're stuck with me.
I'm like, now we are. You're stuck with me too. I love how you framed ambition in terms of liberation and leaving people in places better than you found them. Like, it's not only ambition for the sake of like individual actualization, but it's like pulling everyone along, liberation, leaving things better than they were when you got there. And I am very much fueled by that as well in my own career and in building this Black Girl Ambition platform. I imagine that you have lots of mentees. Shout out to the mentees. What are some truths or some mindset shifts that you give to them? Like, you encourage other Black women or marginalized groups who want to reach their full potential.
The key and core one for me, which I think people will get a sense of regarding me and what I believe, when they read the book: stop waiting for permission. It's not coming. You are the permission slip. And also stop mistaking patience for purpose. I think that there's an entire generation who was taught that, to be patient, wait your turn. Your purpose will come find you. And growth doesn't mean waiting your turn. It means creating a table where and when they won't give you a seat, and pulling up a chair alongside you for the next person, the next mentee, the next woman, the next human being alongside you. So those are two things that definitely come to mind for me. You are the permission slip. Step forward in your purpose. Don't wait for it to find you, and don't, mistake patience for growth. You can build the thing that doesn't yet exist, and you can bring others alongside you. And I think that the more I age and grow in wisdom, the more I believe that we have to create our own tables. And Shirley Chisholm, who said, pull up your own folding chair to that table. I think we need more spaces for ourselves, meaning us, the Black community, Black people, Black women, creating our own space as opposed to waiting for permission to be led into the spaces that have always existed that were not created with us in mind.
Yes, because the more that I live, and also through the work that I have done professionally, it's increased my skepticism about the existing tables, us ever being invited to those tables, right? Like consistently and systemically, not as tokens. For 2020, actually, I would say that I was skeptical. Then 2020 happened and we had the social justice movement that ensued over the next couple of years. And I was full of hope, okay? Full of unfettered hope, and truly probably like burned myself out in the process of trying to build those, to get to the tables. Not build my own table or build tables for us, but to like get to the existing ones.
Yeah.
And now, after everything that's followed, I have a deeper level of skepticism about this existing system ever, like it ever being shared. And so I agree with you. And I think that we're going to have to really be intentional and serious and united around building different tables, because I just don't think the existing power structure is ever going to do it. It's just not going to do it.
No, it's working how it was intended to, which is to keep us out.
Yeah, that's the intent. I want to talk a bit about systems. I believe that patriarchy is just as harmful to Black women as racism is. And I'm curious, one, if you agree with that, and then if you can share more about how you've seen these systems intersect in our lives, the lives of Black women.
Yeah, I mean, they're tied one to another. And I don't think that you can unravel those two isms from one another. Patriarchy tells you you're too much. Racism tells us we're not enough, right? And being a Black woman means living in that pressure cooker and yet still cooking up excellence, which we do every day.
Every day.
All day, every day. So yes, I believe that they are tied one to another, all of those isms, but in particular patriarchy and racism, and that they are meant to intersect with each other and to keep us in our place. It all ties into, what I write about in The Price of Nice, and how patriarchy is about, you're being too much. You need to sit pretty. You need to play nice. Stay in your lane. Stay silent. Just wait. Be patient. Permission, wait for permission. That will never come, by the way. The whole goal is to manufacture us sitting and waiting forevermore. It's a form of control. And I write even in The Price of Nice about this idea of manufactured consent, which Noam Chomsky wrote about. And I reference his book that I wrote with Edward somebody, whose name I'm forgetting, but manufactured consent. And I think patriarchy and racism both play into that, and those power dynamics of control, the desires for us to be compliant, to be agreeable, and to stay in the lane that was curated.
What do you believe that true liberation for Black women looks like? And I think about that in two ways. I'll pose that in two ways, like both internally within our personal selves.
Yeah.
And maybe that's in how we make decisions. I'm not going to answer it for you, but for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then externally, what does liberation look like in the systems that we navigate?
One of the first things that came to my mind just now as you're talking was Audre Lorde, who talked about how, we've been taught that silence would save us, but it won't. And for me, liberation, I think, ties back into that. And it's, nobody questions our brilliance. Nobody second guesses our leadership. And we're not the exception, but we're the expectation. I think that would be a reality that I would love to see. And I think true liberation systemically is that the systems cease to exist. I think that what we have today doesn't work. The entirety of this place that we live in and experience, the US and the workplace, were not built with our thriving in mind. They weren't built with our personhood in mind. They weren't built for us at all. And they don't work for everyone. They are very specifically for one sector of the world, white people. And to me, true liberation is that those systems cease to exist and that we can move forward with a new vision and imagine what could be as opposed to what is today.
If you could leave my Black Girl Ambition listeners with one mantra or mindset to carry forward as they pursue their ambition on their own damn terms,
yes,
what would it be?
Yeah. For me in this moment, right now, right, it changes over time in life. But for right now, it's everything I write about in the book. Be and prioritize nerve, not nice, right? Niceness asks, will they like me? Nerve asks, will they remember me and what I stood for? And I think in this moment, in the world, in the US, politically, personally, and otherwise, where we find ourselves, I'm constantly asking myself every day with every decision I make, will they remember what I stood for? Because we're in a moment where I think people, when the Holocaust happened, asked themselves as they learned that history, what would I have done then? And we've heard so many people to say what you're doing right here today, right now with what's happening in the US is exactly what you would have done and the side you would have stood on. And I don't think that's hyperbolic to say that we're in a similar time where there is a whole host of people trying to erase many of us. And so I want people to ask themselves, will they remember what I stood for? What will I be remembered for? And what did you stand for? Now is the time of our life, of our generation, to make that decision, to draw that line in the sand. And you have to pick. Neutrality only serves the oppressor. You have to pick a side.
Neutrality only serves the oppressor. Amira, what is your greatest ambition in life?
To leave receipts, not just for what I survived, but for what I changed, right? I'm not here to build kingdoms, right? When I think of a kingdom, a person who wants to build a kingdom wants something and someone to rule. And I want to move through this world laying foundations, like I talked about earlier, laying one brick at a time. And to me, a person who wants to lay a foundation is someone who wants something to build from and to build towards. Because this life, this work, this fight, I know that it doesn't end with me. It doesn't end with you. It doesn't end with us and our generation, right? Others will come and they will also have to fight for every single inch too. And the least that I can do is to make the ground a little more solid for them with the bricks that I lay in this foundation. And that is my greatest ambition.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story today and your insights. Please take a minute to let people know where to find you and also to plug your book, where to find it, and the release date.
Yes. So I am at Amira Barger everywhere, from TikTok to Instagram, you name it. I am launching in May, amirabarger.com, where I will have everything about everything I'm doing, from articles to speaking to the book. And the price of Nice drops this fall on October 28th, 2025. And I promise you, it's the permission slip, the pep talk, the push that you didn't know you needed. And you can pre-order it now today, wherever books are sold, from Barnes and Noble to Penguin Random House, Bookshop, if you want to support indie and local booksellers. Anywhere books are sold online, you can pre-order The Price of Nice now, and find me at amirabarger.com. That's launching this May 2025 with all the links and all the wonderful things about what I'm doing in the world.
Thank you so much again for being here. It was great speaking with you today.
Likewise, appreciate you having me.
Overzealous when I'm thinking about the cash flow. I never had no handouts, just came natural. I've been tested so much, all these wrestlers nice.